So like maybe like 5 years ago, I was working at a company and I was struggling to keep up with some of the senior engineers there. We had two PhD computer scientists on staff, and I was really at that point kind of like a production engineer. So I was definitely on top of a couple of low level concepts, and I could rock those out faster than other engineers on the team. But when it came to stuff like design patterns and stuff that was a little bit more high level, I was just totally like left in the dust. So that was intimidating to me, and the way I provided value to the team when I didn't have this PhD computer science education was to work really hard and really fast. And one day, this more or less strategy was working for me in terms of like being appreciated in some context. It was all I could really do. I didn't have a PhD in computer science, so I had to provide value, and working hard and fast was my only option if I didn't want to get fired. So anyway, one day we interviewed this weird guy, and we didn't know a lot about him. I'm not going to use his real name because I think that's kind of messed up, but we're going to call him Dave. It's not his name. But we interviewed this guy named Dave, and it turns out that he used to work at Google. And even though we had two PhD computer scientists on our team, someone who works at Google, generally, they're kind of in a, I don't know how to say this. They're probably operating at a level that most of the people are not operating at. They probably have a genetic disposition to think about things in a specific way that allows them to navigate software engineering in a different way than I could, for example. If they were to take a standardized exam, they would probably do better on that exam than I would, for example. So anyway, this Google guy, we're interviewing him or whatever. During the interview, he does this crazy thing where like I watch him do it too, and he like flips the interview around, and we actually realize as we're interviewing him as a team that he has totally turned around the interview process, and he's interviewing us about whether or not we're good enough to have him on our team. And after the interview ended, one of our team members was like, "Holy shit! Like, did you see what he did there?" And like everyone was just like their socks were blown out of the water. So we end up making him an offer, and it was kind of unclear like why he even wanted to work with us, but he ended up I think he had just moved into town from Seattle, so he was new to the area, and the company that I worked for was one of the bigger software companies in town. So if you kind of wanted to have a real software job in Eugene, that was one of your only options, to be honest. So anyway, they make him an offer. I have no idea what the terms were, and he accepted the job. And the first thing I noticed about Brunson is that he was very kind. He moved very slowly and very intentionally with everything that he did. He didn't give a fuck about the way that other people on the team operated. He was kind of like marching to the beat of his own drum. And because he had worked at Google in this, environment that was just like legions ahead of what we were doing in our podunk software company in Eugene, Oregon, he kind of had the right to do that. But he still didn't really like fit in quite right. And to me, I was a younger guy on the team, and most of the people in terms of personalities tended to be a little bit more reserved, a little bit more careful, and I was kind of in the space where I was still kind of testing limits and trying to see not what I could get away with, but maybe like trying to figure out my role at the company. So anyway, for whatever reason, after Brunson gets hired, I just gave away his name. Shit. Oh, too late. His name was Brunson. For whatever reason, after this guy gets hired, I end up pairing with him on his first front-end coding exercise. And so I was teaching him a Redux implementation called Flux. And we were working through this client-side design pattern, and it was something that he had never worked with specifically. And one of the first things he did when we went into this like weird little room to work through, onboarding him, was he turned around in his chair, and he put his knees towards me, and he said, "You have my full attention." I thought that was really weird. He was like, "I'm listening to you, and you have my full attention." Like he stated it out loud. And I was like, "All right, cool." uh, and, that went on a couple of times. And I didn't really like bring it up at first, but finally I got to the point where I was just like, "Why are you doing this thing where you say that before we do anything?" And he was like, "Oh, it's a Google thing. Everyone does it there." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he was like, "Well, at Google, there's kind of like this cultural thing where at any point in time during your workday, you either have someone's full attention or you don't have any of it. There's a policy there if you're a software engineer there where if you're gonna work on something with someone, you're not going to be interacting with someone else in chat and dealing with someone else on the phone and helping someone at the same time. If you're helping someone, the chat is off, the other conversation is not happening then, and you are locked in and engaged with all of your brain GPUs cycling towards the goal of what you're doing in that moment." And through the process of working with this guy, over the course of 3 years, he ultimately became my boss. And experience after experience after experience working with this guy showed all of us that he understood a bunch of stuff that we did not understand. And because he was nice and cool, and he had a real interest in communicating in a kind way, in an intentional way, and he had no ego, he was very successful in terms of directing the attention of our team, which was primarily academic anyway, towards a new form of interaction using this style, where you would either have someone's full attention or none of their attention. Anyway, I didn't realize it, but slowly, because I was on a team with this guy, I started operating this way too. And I have been operating this way. I didn't even really realize it until some stuff happened recently. And a lot of the stuff that's been going well for me in my life has had a relationship to the idea that I give things my full attention, right? I give them none at all. And I just think that as we navigate our lives, there's a real propensity for others around us to influence our behavior. And if we're not careful, people are going to try to get you to do things the way that they do things. And I think sometimes you just have to kind of know that your process is right and hope that other people might see that. I think one of the most important things I did over the last 5 years was start operating in a way where I either give my full attention towards something, I am fully committed towards the thing that I'm paying attention to and resolving that specific issue 100%, or I'm ignoring it. But once I'm on it 100%, and all of my attention is directed towards it until the problem is solved. I would encourage all of you to consider the wisdom of Brunson in your lives. And if you are finding yourself doing a bunch of tasks simultaneously, it's possible that you might be lying. It's possible that you might be missing details and unintentionally creating more work for yourself and more work for your team by not giving every interaction all of your attention. I'm not trying to be some weird guru or whatever. I'm not that smart. But this theme has been reoccurring a lot lately, and it's important, I think. It's an important thing to share, and I just realized it today how important it was.